It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. I'm Pete Francis alongside Willie Witten. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to get all the latest videos. And Willie, we're going to get things kicked off this week talking about new bands from 2020. Who are some new bands in 2020 that have been on your radar that have really impressed you?
I was looking forward to, and I wasn't disappointed. And it's not his splash onto the scene. He's played before. He played with a family band, but his first real solo full-length album, Ryan Perry. I really did enjoy him. I think I've mentioned his name before on this show. He has his great sensibilities as far as knowing when to play extensively, knowing when not to. His songs rely a lot on good blues, I guess, standards, but he writes his own stuff. He's not derivative. He quotes, musically quoting different people, different players. There's even a inspirations from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory quote towards the end of one of his songs. He's got a wonderfully lived in voice. His voice is very authentic. It's in the low end. It's in got that low register growl, which I really like. And he keeps his songs pretty simple. And what I mean by that is not that they're basic and that you can just go pick up a guitar and play. Not at all. They're advanced. His rhythm section is tight in the manner of playing. But what it allows for is it allows for a little bit more memorable riffs and verses to hit that listener in a way that they're going to think, oh, I want to go listen to that song again. I want to go listen to High Risk, Low Reward, which is one of his best songs on his album. I want to listen to Hard Times again. That catch, that hook, he has it. So he's great. I also really liked out of nowhere, out of Athens, Greece, the Buzz Dealers. And this is a bit of maybe out of left field, but these guys have a little bit of that heavy, choppy, fuzzed out guitar delivery. Speaking of memorability, they are wonderful in their lyrics. Perhaps part of that's because they're Greek and they write in English. I found it interesting, but they really keep their songs concise. They have a unique delivery. When you put them on, they have a sound that doesn't really sound like anyone else. And they'll give you lyrics sometimes that I think are very unique. I'll read you something here. A feast of commoners, exploded flowers, filled up with happiness, think up in your way. To me, I think that's original. Some might love it, some might hate it, but that is their first album too. They're four guys out of Athens. Not Athens, Georgia, but Athens, Greece. So those are two people who I've really enjoyed. I think they might have something to offer us in the future. How about you, Pete? What has sort of struck your fancy?
Well, yeah, I think there's definitely a couple of new bands this year that have been pretty impressive. One of them that stands out to me is Magnolia Boulevard, which is a 5-piece band out of Kentucky. And they're doing some really interesting things. They sound somewhat similar to the Tedeschi Trucks band.
Okay.
So they are doing some pretty cool things. They released their debut EP this year. Greg Irwin's a great slide guitar player. Maggie Noel is on lead vocals, and she's a fantastic singer. So they're a really cool band that's kind of impressed me. Another band that I like is the Georgia Thunderbolts. They have kind of that retro vibe, which is pretty cool. And then another artist that really kind of sticks out to me this year is Blue House, who's an artist I interviewed a few months back, and he's put out a couple singles this year that are really cool. He's got kind of that Black Keys, Gary Clark Jr. type rock sort of vibe, cool riffs. So he's an artist that's definitely impressed me, and I'm looking forward to his debut album.
Oh, cool. I got to catch a listen to the Georgia Thunderbolts. I agree with you. They have that throwback. I think it's cool. I think Ryan Perry and also the guys that I picked in the Buzz Dealers, maybe this is the way to say it. I don't know if you agree. It's nice to hear that throwback sound when they still sound original, though.
Right.
Certainly, I felt that way about the Thunderbolts. So, yeah, those are good picks. Blue House is great, too.
So, Willie, let's talk about collaborations. And one of the things I really like about the blues rock genre is we see a lot of collaborations. We see a lot of artists working together, guesting on each other's albums. There's a lot of, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, which is something that's really cool about this genre. But would you like to see more artists in the blues rock genre kind of crossing over with their collaborations, perhaps going to EDM, hip hop, pop, those sorts of genres?
I think I don't want to see just a mass exodus. And obviously there's something called too much of a good thing. But yeah, I think that would be nice. I think it would be nice in that it would be something different for blues rock fans, because I think as a genre, blues rock genre doesn't do a lot of the cross genre collaboration. Uh, I just don't see a lot of it. They tend to stick towards blues. They'll do plenty of cross generational. You see that all the time.
Yeah.
Tons of playing together, like you said. I think it would be interesting. I don't know exactly how it would work. I think it could work really well with the rap R&B genre. I know that I think, once again, a couple episodes back, we spoke about Eric Gales. He did a little bit of guest appearances on some rap back in the Memphis days. But I think that also what it could really allow is I think it could help with blues rock and blues rock artists get some exposure to other listeners. And we've spoken about how some of the fans are, you see the same people, or it's the same generational group, and you wonder how this genre is going to expand. I think this would be a great step, because I certainly don't think that it's not that there's a ton to offer. I just think that they haven't had the same success crossing from the radio era to the album era into this new era that we have, that's much more streaming and much more social media. It's been a bit harder. And I think that a couple, different collaborations, stepping outside the comfort zone, I think one, they could yield great tunes that we could be listening to for songs of the year. If you think of Lil Nas X and was it Billy Ray Cyrus?
Old Town Road.
Right. And I think that's pretty unexpected. Why not for blues rock? And I think certainly you might be able to ensnare some listeners from the younger generation. And I think that would be great for everyone. So
yeah, I wouldn't go crazy on it, but I think it's a good idea to do it from time to time. And I think it would definitely help exposure wise and get some of these artists more exposure. I'd interviewed Kingfish a while back, and it was pretty interesting because he said, bring them in with the hip hop and then tell them about the real deal, which I thought was pretty cool. But an artist like him, for instance, I think he could definitely do that and have that kind of crossover appeal. And that would help bring more people in, especially a guy, a younger guy like him. You think about artists like Gary Clark Jr., collaborations can definitely help. And if you look back a few years back, Joe Bonamassa and Beth Hart getting together, and that really did wonders for both of their careers. Right. So I think these sort of collaborations can definitely have value, and I think it would help to bring more fans to the genre and get more exposure for the genre.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that really there's no excuse not to. Certainly music is a lot easier to create these days, and reaching out, I don't know so much if it's hesitancy by blues artists who are, I wouldn't call them insular, but I think there's a lot of tradition to the art form. And there's a little bit of, maybe it's hard to break in to blues or the group. But like you'd say, Pete, we speak to some of these artists. They're some of the nicest people in the world. So I don't think it's from the side of the blues artists and blues rock people not being approachable. They're more than approachable. And also, you taking a look at the different genres, whether it's country or rap, there's a collaboration going on as we speak, I'm sure. So they're all over the map. So I don't think it's there either. I think it's just maybe there needs to be that first person who's going to make that first jump and do something that no one's expecting. I don't know who it's going to be, but someone's got to go first. But I do think it would be a great avenue to explore. And I think, once again, the blues is always evolving. And this could be just another step in the evolution of the blues. Blues EDM, Never would I think that it might be something we'd hear, but who knows? I'm not the musician. There's certainly good enough musicians out there on both sides who can make that work, I think. So bring it on is what I'd say.
Yeah, I
we'd
think
do great.
collaborations are a good thing.
Yeah.
So let's talk technology. And obviously, technology has constantly been evolving, especially in the music business, and things are completely different today than they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. And we actually did a documentary on technology in the music business, which you can check out on Blues Rock Review's YouTube channel. Willie, with the way things are now with technology, especially with the pandemic going on and how things have changed and evolved, do you think the changes in technology in the music business, for the most part, have been for the better?
Oh, that is difficult because the first answer that comes to mind is yes. Yes. When we think back about or just take a look at old archives and pictures, people making music, they used to come out in lab coats. Engineers or people would come out in lab coats, and magnetic tape was brutally expensive. It was hard to get a record deal. Without a record deal, where are you going to come up with the people to play your music? If you're a great musician, who's going to give you songs to play? There was a very narrow pyramid, and you really had to climb. You had to be brought in by somebody. It was hard to do. So I think with technology, the first part of my answer of yes has to do with it's far easier to make music these days. You don't need to have $50,000. You don't need to have $5,000. If you take a look, you could make, if you have a really good song, you could get it up quickly onto a Spotify, onto a TikTok even. I know, Pete, that's not your biggest place to go for music, but let's be honest, that's an avenue and it's
Right.
cheap. So I think it's great. I think it's great that during this pandemic, look at what we're doing now. It's so much easier to connect with people, whether those are people working together or an artist and fan connection. It's so much easier than it used to be. I think all of that's wonderful. The dark side of it, however, is that the necessity to be out and to meet people in person, it seemed like a little bit of a hurdle, and certainly was. But when you think about it, so much of music is a result of people getting together, sharing ideas, playing in the moment. That's why there's such a big, big market for outtakes and concerts and live tapings, because there's something immediate about music. I think some of that maybe falls by the wayside a bit because it's so easier to make a bedroom recording. Nothing wrong with it, but you don't need people like you used to. And maybe the second thing I'd have a problem with is, from what I've heard from some studio engineers, that a lot of times people who do go into studios now aren't really ready to play because they know they have an infinite amount of takes. When tape was really expensive, and it still is for those who record on tape, they know it's still expensive. You've got a million bites of the apple now. And I think that maybe that leads to those who are less disciplined to not be ready to record when they're in the studio. Maybe I'm reaching here, Pete. What do you think? Is this true, or am I really just reaching for negatives?
Well, I think as far as the positives, I think having the accessibility, the barrier to enter is not as big as it used to be.
And that's
I
a
mean,
good
practically
thing.
anyone can record an album from home now, and it's not that expensive. You can pretty much get all the equipment that you need for around $500, and you can
Yeah.
record an album at home. And you can get decent equipment, decent microphones. You could get a pretty good sounding microphone for $100 and start recording. You know, that sounds way better than something you're going to spend a ton of money on 15, 20 years ago.
Right.
So I think from that standpoint, it's great, the fact that people can record from home, and there's so much information out there too with YouTube. And if you want to learn how to record and put together professional recordings, all that information is out there. So I think that's great. And it allows people to build home recording studios. And I think all that stuff is fantastic. So I think from an ease of access standpoint, I think it's easier to make music today. It's easier to put music out. Now, obviously, the downfall with the technology changes is, yeah, now that everything is on streaming, it makes it really difficult for musicians to make money. But on the flip side of that, now I think artists are able to act more independently today. You don't have to necessarily rely on a record label. Now, you do have to know a lot of other things. You need to know how to promote yourself and market yourself. If you don't have that, well, then maybe you might be better suited on a record label. But distribution is a lot easier today as well.
Oh, yeah.
You don't necessarily need to have a record label for distribution. There are platforms out there. TuneCore is one of them, and it'll allow you basically to get your music on all these different platforms, Amazon, iTunes, all that sort of stuff. So I think from a distribution standpoint, it's a lot easier as well if you want to go independently. So if you're willing to, I guess, put in the work and do other things like the marketing and the promotion and all that sort of stuff, I think the technology changes are for the better. I think it definitely evens the playing field for everybody.
I'll ask one just question to bring us out on. I'd like you to tell me what you think about this. As far as music as the art form itself, yeah, you can be without a label, but all those things the label used to do for you, as hard as it was to get that contract, you have to, as you said, do yourself, to be out there, to promote, to go ahead and really produce. Do you think that that is down the line good for music when the artist isn't really able to give their full attention, 100% to their art form when they're thinking about, oh, I've got to be on Twitter and what about this merchandise? Do you think that although now it seems good, that down the line we're going to look back and say, hey, it was better when the artist used to?
Well, I think that's a great question, Willie. And I think you have to look at it as a business, right? So part of running a business is having employees. So you don't necessarily have to do it all yourself. If you can find someone who's going to work with you, who can do the marketing and the promotion, you can do that. There's a lot of artists out there today, they're treating themselves like they're a business, so they have people who are working on the marketing and the promotions. You can hire a publicist or whatnot. So there are things you can do as an artist to take that load off of you so you can focus on the music. But yeah, I think that's a great question. But, with the changes in technology, I think it has definitely leveled the playing field. And I think overall for artists, while there's probably more competition today than ever before, I think everybody has an opportunity. So I think the playbook is sort of out there. It's just a matter of, who's got what it takes to really to do it and put together all the pieces that need to be put together, because some people, are great at marketing, some have the talent, but they're not great at marketing. So it's those artists that can really hit on all those different areas. Those are the ones that are going to have the most success today.
Fair assessment.
All right. What do you guys think? Leave your comments down in the comments section below and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell to get all the latest videos. But for now, he's Willie Witten. I'm Pete Francis. This is the Blues Rock Show. We'll see you next time.